Hello everybody, this is a very impromptu little guide on your blocks and fittings because I was gonna do a post on making this evening, but I had two really good questions or queries about blocks, so I thought I'd do that instead and actually answer your questions and do something you want. So there's two queries. One is about mini blocks, which is quite straightforward, so I'm going to answer that first, and the other one is about why my blocks look different to the made to measure bodice block, which is a very good question. So I'm going to move to a tabletop and tell you a bit more about them. So the first question about blocks and how I use them came from Tessa, and Tessa just sort of said, your half-sized block you use in your tutorials, does it actually correspond to your full-sized block? And in my case it does, because I had already scanned mine in, so I just printed it out at 50% on my printer, so it was really straightforward. If you want to have a half-sized block, I think in your own size, I think it's a great idea, because then you can actually really see exactly how each drafting tutorial is gonna look like, what proportions you need, all that sort of stuff. Because all you do is, if you draw 1 centimeter here, on your full-sized one you draw 2 centimeters. So you can actually do a complete pre-draft of your idea at half scale and then just scale it up. In theory you could just draft your own made to measure bodice block again and just half of the measurements, but it's a long process. So I would either scan them in if you have a big scanner, take a photograph right from the top, and then just on Photoshop or somewhere make sure your center front and center back measurement correspond exactly to original size, and this is right angles, and then you can print it out at 50% and you get a half-size block which fits you perfectly. The second question about blocks came from Julia, and it's in two parts really, so I'm going to answer the really easy or more straightforward part first. And basically Julia said, I've just done your made to measure bodice block, and it's a bit confusing because on all the blocks you use for drafting, the dart is in a different position to the made to measure bodice block. And Julia, you're completely right, and I should have probably explained it. Basically, wherever you put your dart is up to your taste. It's still always the bust dart. On the made to measure bodice block, it comes out of your high shoulder point, so the point where your shoulder and your neck meet. And the only reason for that is just that it's really easy to draft that way. It gets a lot more complicated if you draft it out of your side seam or something. But once you've drafted it, it is actually sort of in the way here, and it's quite hard and obtrusive to match it up, and it's also quite big because it's a really long dart. So what I and most other pattern cutters do, we just move it to a point which suits us personally. So it depends what you're drafting. So if you're doing a lot of tailored styles, just as jackets, stuff like that, you probably have the bust dart which goes to the shoulder. For me, I do a lot of dresses and tops. I have it on the underarm. It's quite small that way, and you can do lots of different shoulders and necklines and details and seams without always having to move the dart. So it's up to you, and you can choose whatever position you'd like to do. And I've got, I think on my essential darts course, I'm going to put a link in the description below, I've got tutorial on how to move your dart position. It's quite straightforward, and that should help you just put the dart wherever you want it on your block. The second part of Julia's question was about why is there a shoulder dart on the made to measure bodice block, and why does your block you use hasn't got it? And that's a really good question. The proper way is to have a shoulder dart, and I've included it in my drafting tutorial because you need it for a lot of styles. and also it depends on your shoulder shape. For most of us, we need a bit of shaping at the back. I've got, for me there's two reasons I haven't got it. One is I haven't drawn in the dart, but I've got ease. So my back shoulder is just a little bit longer than my front shoulder, but it's only, I think, 1/2 centimeter maximum, because the reason is, that's the second part, is I've got a very straight shoulder. So I've got, I think it's called a hollow back or something, but I don't really need the dart for my basic bodice block, which is semi-fitted, not really tightly fitted. So I've just replaced my dart with half amount of ease, so I can ease it into the front when I stitch together, because it's always in bias, so you can ease it in. And I haven't marked it because I know my block really well, and most of the time when I'm showing you drafting tutorials, it's not that relevant. So I'm just using my basic block. So I apologize. What I've done now is actually on my half-size blocks, which I'm going to use for most draft tutorials, I've actually drawn in the back shoulder dart, just so it's a bit clearer, and I'm going to do the same on my full-sized one. It's a lot smaller, but it's the same principle, and it's basically, it's sort of, once you get to know your blocks really well, they fit you, you can have a sort of few shortcuts which you can't have if it's a board block or a block you use with other people. So it's not laziness, but it's sort of familiarity where you can take shortcuts. But from now on, I'm going to put the dart in just to make it clear there is a dart. You don't always have to use it, you can replace it with ease, but best practice is to have it on your blocks. So I hope this explained a bit why my block looks a bit different than the made to measure block, and also how to use half-size block. I put it out to all of you because I think it's relevant, and it's something I've been thinking about a while. Why I should really put that shoulder dart in at the back. If you ever have any questions, just message me or comment on whatever post it's relevant to, and I either answer you directly or I make a video if I think it's really relevant to general pattern cutting. But that's it for me for tonight, and I see you on Friday with a new drafting tutorial.